Launching something is like anyone can do it today, which is just crazy to think, because I used to think I would need to go and study an engineering degree in order to do that.
Any go-to-market engineer, anyone in go-to-market can now produce an agent to replicate anything in the go-to-market flow, but it's what's the quality, how quickly can you iterate and learn that as well.
Before I go sleep, I always or open a new cloud code session to say, do this. So the next day when I wake up, I can review the work.
So I guess one of the most interesting things that's happened in the last few years is we often talk about code and capital as two of the highest form of leverage that you can have as an individual. And now, just in the last few years, people who weren't proficient software developers now have access to code as a form of leverage. And so I wanted to talk to you three as examples of people who have really taken advantage of that and shipped some pretty awesome things within your companies and yourselves. That really demonstrate how the world has changed and what's possible. So maybe I'll start with you, Jason. Just, you've been a product designer for many years, self-taught AI engineer, and now you have taken it to the next level by building the tooling to help other people, whether designers or other non-technical people in general, have access to code as leverage themselves. So I'd love to kind of start with, what was your work day like as a product designer 5 years ago, and what is it like today?
Yeah, it's definitely changed a lot. So when I started my career, I think Photoshop was the was the thing you go, and then you have like Sketch, Figma. You basically draw all the blocks from scratch. So my last company, Renee AI, when I was there, I think one thing we changed is that we try to get designers to, so I was leading product team there. And one thing I was frustrated is because outside work, I vibe code a lot. And I see all my engineer teams workflow start fundamental change, but designer PM is still doing what they do before. Then when I ran an experiment, I tried to get my team to start using those tools. And initially we tried to use, I think, Level and V0 to just build prototypes. So they kind of skip the PRD process. So that part shocked a lot. But later, I think things became really interesting when I can get my design team into the actual real code base. So I actually kind of lock my design team in a day in a room and force them to become front-end engineer almost. Getting them, create GitHub account, cursor, teach them how to get a local server up running. It was a pain in the ass, but after they learned that, I start saying, okay, the first PR shipped from one designer, because the old development process was like you have a marketing team give PM feedback, and then PM get designer design something, and then engineer ships the actual design. But engineer never ship 100% what you want. They always last 10% quality gaps. So I start seeing my designers to just jump in the code base, fixing all those things, spend hours where front engineer never want to do. So that's kind of new workflow that I didn't have 5 years ago, because it's not possible. But on the and I remember the one designer, I think it was Wednesday, and he was saying, "Oh, I realized I haven't opened Figma for past 3 days this week yet," and because he just for the initial ideation, he would just draw on the paper, and then once you get it down, you go to if the simple things, you can just go to cursor and then give a give kind of screenshot to the cursor, say, hey, this is kind of a wireframe, and help me build the kind of feature and experience prototype it in real code base with our existing design system. So he will do something like that as well. So I definitely think the consumption or time we spend in kind of traditional design tools has decreased a bit compared with before. And that's probably one big change into my designer workflow. But for myself, I was also doing a lot of engineer work recently as well. And I found when I talked to my best engineer team, the way they work is quite interesting. They were open, 5 or 8 different kind of terminal sessions at the same time. And it really kind of extract all the capitalism out of you when you have an employee that you just feel like always working. And I observe I myself doing that as well. I would just open one session, ask agent to hey, build me this feature. It come up with a plan, and then I would say, go execute. While it is executing for the next 5 to 10 minutes, I was like, okay, it should just do more work. Let me open a new session. Let's do the next feature. So it's very addictive as well. And before I go sleep, I always or open a new, cloud code session to say, do this. So the next day when I wake up, I can review the work. So I definitely think the software engineer process also fundamentally changed. You don't really look at low-level implementation too much.
Maybe over to you, Saahil, in terms of, you're coming from a different perspective, which is go-to-market, but I feel like you've had kind of a similar set of experiences. So I'd love to hear kind of your version of what your workflow used to be and then where it is now.
So I think even it's you look at it a year ago, but you even look at it a few months ago to where stuff is now with how fast AI rapidly changes. I think 6 months ago, N8N was all the hype, right? And everyone's building these demonstrous workflows, 50, 100 nodes to execute all these tasks. But we look at the way MCPs move, Claude Code skills, and how much you're actually able to bring into someone that's non-technical and able to actually go and execute on really specific tasks. So, I was speaking to our head of sales and he was telling us that about a year and a half ago, they'd pre-graphed a pre-call research agent that would be able to go and do really detailed research for an account executive, both on our internal tools and externally, and then produce a really detailed brief of what we want. And that was going to be something 160 different nodes in N8N to get the quality that we wanted and everything else. And then today we rebuilt that entire process, and it's 3 nodes chucked in with a number of different MCP servers, really detailed prompting. And it's not only our ability to deliver it really quickly, but it's the ability to then iterate. Because I don't know about you guys, in the age where you can produce just about anything, it's actually the quality of what you produce that actually becomes the most important. Because you can dump as much information at sales reps and then they're going to use none of it. And so the ability to be we have something, but we can really quickly change, iterate, and make it useful to you as a sales rep, I think is changing so much. So with go-to-market, it's any go-to-market engineer, anyone in go-to-market can now produce an agent to replicate anything in the go-to-market flow, but it's what's the quality, how quickly can you iterate and learn that as well.
How is that set up internally? Is there kind of one person who is building these and getting the feedback and changing them? Or do you actually have your salespeople trained to the point where they're able to kind of build an N8N themselves? Or, where are you up to?
Yeah, I think for us, we're actually just moving over that phase right now. So probably for the last 6 months, it was our go-to-market operations team that was really in the tools building in workflows and all of these different things. But I think increasingly, we're moving towards a world where we want to democratize the use of AI and especially agent building to our sales teams themselves to actually meet them where they're working. And I think it's actually really easy to do today. So we're moving more and more to a world where we build frameworks and then each person can actually personalize the agents to themselves. So I'll be like, hey guys, here's a pre-call research agent that our ops team has built. But you might have questions that every sales rep has a unique opener, or every sales rep has a unique point of view on what they want to do. So it's how do you actually then customize that to your own workflow? Once the structure is built out, it's super easy. And as long as you enable your team to do it, you democratize that use back. And I think, yeah, MCP with the addition of kind of all the tools being built now has been such a game changer in that.
Are they using N8N to build those things by themselves?
We're using N8N to build more complex workflows, but also natively now in Claude with projects. You can actually get a lot of the utility previously that you had to get out of N8N or something else in product. Where N8N is useful is, and where I found mostly these things to be useful is kind of, there's 2 forks in the road. One where you want a really desired specific output to plug into somewhere, and you need it to run at a specific schedule, right? So let's just say I need it to run at a certain time of the day, or I need to run it when a certain event happens. So there's some sort of trigger. And you just need that triggering mechanism that any workflow builder is really good to deliver. But where you want, for example, the ability to live run an agent. So I'll give an example. It's better to actually leave it in Claude as an environment and users can actually get that. So for example, one of the most I was a sales rep back in the day, and the thing I hated the most was end of month admin, right? So you get to the end of the month and you got to clean your pipeline. Close states got to be updated. There's a bunch of deals that haven't moved forward, blah, 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 right? And so now instead of doing that, with a really good HubSpot MCP setup that has the right permissions, each user can literally go in and say, hey, show me my pipeline, show me my active pipeline where close dates are overdue. Then also look through my emails and figure out where I need to be moving, what are the close dates, what were the next steps that were stipulated via my emails. So now what was previously for me, the most dreaded hour of my Friday at the end of the month to like update close dates is like 2 messages to Claude in a predefined project. And then it moves those close dates out for me as well. There's no manual work on my end. And so my interface with a CRM with any sort of object completely changes.
You mentioned quality before. When you said that, what I immediately thought was like, how accurate is that? And I guess how much has it improved and how much do you expect it to improve in the next kind of 3-6 months? Because the worst version of that, I guess, is it gets 70% of them, but it doesn't get the other 30%. And then you end up just with inaccurate data.
100%. That's been my experience with it as well. And I think it's a big learning curve that any go-to-market engineer, anyone working in this space goes through, which is, so about 4 months ago, we rolled out what I would call as like V1 of our like pre-core brand research agent to our sales team. And self-admittedly, now it was not a success by any means whatsoever. And like, why? Because it again got 70% of the way there, right? But when the reps started poking holes in the like remaining 30, it either pulled data that was too old, not within the confined restraints that we'd put on the agent, other bugs that would creep in, not finding the right stakeholders, little things like that. Their trust in that like agent completely diminished as a sales rep. And right, like people might endemically already be a bit more jarred by AI. And so that was like definitely a learning curve for us of being like, just because you can spit out an agent quickly doesn't mean shipping it to the entire team is like what you should do straight away. And it's about how do you actually get it to a place where it can execute that task to the highest degree, not just like ship quicker. So that's why we went, and it took us like 3 months to rebuild that process. And now I would say again, in that 3 months, the ability of the LLM has improved greatly with every new model release. LLMs are much more accurate. With every new feature upgrade, the way you can point LLMs to very specific directions has improved, but also our ability to like learn from our teams what is important and continue to refine prompting down, process down, has had like a massive impact on the end output.
Is there a kind of specific team structure that I guess you've probably iterated a bit around like it's sitting within ops and it's sitting within teams specifically. Is it centralized? Is it decentralized? Like what's been working best for you?
It's a great question. I'll give my point of view, but I'll also say I think it's an open discussion that's going to change a lot over the next like few years. And again, like I always say, like we built an agent 3 months ago that does like case study creation for us internally now. And if I was to rebuild it today, it would be completely different just because of how fast that entire process has moved. Now going back to your point, I think having a centralized go-to-market engineering or ops function is really beneficial from the point of view of looking ahead of like what's coming and me able to implement and trial and iterate. Because what people struggle, and like this is exactly it, it's like what we've said internally is if you want a sales team to go and build it themselves or CS teams to go and be building agents, what today you're asking people to do is do their full-time job and learn a new language at the same time, but at work, right? And if everyone's stretched already and you're telling everyone to take multiple hours of your day and go figure it out, it's never going to work. And the reason also is it's like people can go and trial something out. It's like, ooh, I just Gemini launched, right? Like, let me go try anti-gravity, or like, let me go look at Nano Banana Pro. And it's like, I created a few images, great, hysterical. But now how does this actually fit into my workflow? Like, where do I actually take this? Was great, I experimented. And that's where you need a centralized function whose role it is to figure out, this is how you integrate the new technology that's just been released into customer CS, sales, marketing across the board, and helps drive that adoption across the board.
Nice. Renee, you obviously took, I guess it was a year ago today, I think even, that you quit your job, went on like to become a solo builder and to try out all these new tools and see what leverage you could get. Would love to hear the story of your experience and then kind of how you're using the tools today at Chronicle as well.
Yeah, and I think my story, like I've been non-technical, like in every job that I've had Like I was a product manager, and then I did strategy and ops, and I was a chief of staff for a little bit. And I took it like 6 months off purely because the AI tools were exploding, and I just thought, I'm never going to be able to do this in a job, so I'm going to take some time off and actually just experiment with all of this and build. And I think part of it comes from always being non-technical and not being able to actually conceptualize something and actually bring it to market. So I think it was just like a ripe opportunity to do so. It's also how I ended up deciding to move into marketing, because when I started playing with ChatGPT, and my first workflow to build a product was very rudimentary. I would copy and paste ChatGPT code into my Cursor workspace and then kind of push it to Apple. And that's how I got my first iOS app out there. But through that process, like launching a product, and I still consider myself a vibe coder. I can't launch production grade product, but launching something is like anyone can do it today, which is just crazy to think, because I used to think I would need to go and study an engineering degree in order to do that. So I think that's such a huge unlock for people who just have random ideas, where they should definitely go ahead and try and ship something. But I think through that, I actually realized, okay, people can build and people can launch things now. It's actually the distribution side, which is very hard to crack. And I don't think AI can really solve that for you. And so in kind of making a career pivot, that was where I decided to spend my next role in, was more on the go-to-market side and learning growth, learning distribution. How do you grab people's attention? How do you build content and try to scale that and make that go viral in order to then promote the products that you can now build with AI. And so, yeah, that's kind of how I've landed in my current role at Chronicle, doing growth. And these days, how I use AI is very much content production and like scaling that workflow and trying all these different channels to promote our product. And then in my spare time, I'm able to do like product all the way to distribution for my own little apps that I just have fun with playing around with. So yeah, it's real. Like the past year has just changed so drastically when it comes to tools available and what people can now do themselves without having to like, be in a company to do, or, have a team to do. You can very much be a solo builder now.
I feel like marketing has changed so much in the last couple of years. And whether it's launch videos or like geo or just how you create content, like I would love to hear if there are any specific workflows that you think are really effective for you today that like wouldn't have been possible 2 years ago.
Yeah, I think it's one of two things. It's content production, and I'm a one-person marketing team at Chronicle, and so I have to wear many hats. I have to do SEO, I need to do our socials, I like own our brand and what gets put out there. So many different workflows which are possible now with just the one person, and we don't plan to grow the team anytime soon either. And I'm very much able to do what we need to do still. So yeah, on the content production, for SEO, we push out a lot of long form content on the website. I am able to spin up landing pages if we want like an enterprise page or a partnerships page. Like I'm able to do that immediately, like within the hour, just using some AI tools, both for the writing part and copywriting, but also for the actual website and the design. And then when it comes to brand assets, I use like Nano Banana Pro and Image Gen and a lot of design tools to create the assets that are on brand. And I think before you would have to rely on a brand designer and a whole design team to, give them the brief, wait for it, iterate on it, then be able to launch. And that might be a process of minimum a few days, whereas now I can do that again within the hour. So it's kind of like reining in the control, but also being able to move at a much quicker speed and execution-wise, where you can afford to just have a one-person team these days.
How does Nano Banana fit in the workflow? Do you guys do like Instagram posts or what's the output?
Yeah, it's like social posts announcing new features where, you would have the product mock-up, you might have some motion behind it. It's really just like brand imagery. And we have a very specific kind of brand palette where it needs to be on brand, and so I can just generate that today rather than going into Figma and like having a designer design it. So
Gotcha. Interesting. But how do you get Nano Banana like give you own brand? Do you just simply chunk this the product
Yeah,
model and it
reference
just did a good
images
job?
are always the best. So you give it a reference, you just say create it, but change around these little things. And I think the prompt engineering, I don't have necessarily the language to do it, but if you know what you're going for, then you can kind of prompt your way to get that output.
Interesting. Gotcha. Yeah, I feel like Nano Banana or recent model really hit the production grade bar recently. Yeah, interesting.
You were talking a little bit about quality earlier and how kind of designers can now essentially become front-end engineers. And that's a great thing because they love pixel perfect. And like now they can actually ensure that things are pixel perfect. I'm keen to get your take on like how design evolves with the quality bar and maybe kind of taking that next step, which is like it used to be engineers that ship the code. Then it was like designers who make it pixel perfect. And then like, what is the next version of like other people who could potentially ship pixel perfect design?
Yeah, definitely. That's a good question. So maybe I think one observation I saw is that previously you just have this pipeline for delivering any software. You have this spec, someone raise spec who is non-technical, PM, founder, and engineer delivering that. But the problem is that often engineers, even though they use AI tool, they often care more about like, how this system is architected. But those people who are non-technical and are generally care more about final customer output. So generally, I actually found those people are more empowered and can properly produce better things than an engineer doing that. And for like design specific is that, so we've been building like a design agent for, I would say, past 2 months. And initially we were trying to like getting the agent to deliver better output by giving like some more, design practice, as well as like the company's own product context, brand, all those things we allow people to input in. I would say 1 month ago, the product quality bar it generated probably still not as a quality bar that a really good designer would want, because it just generally not that great as front end implementation. But like literally just 2 weeks ago, when Nano Banana, Gemini 3 Pro show up, that whole output quality just changed dramatically. We found you just need to give enough context. It can actually hit the real production designer quality. And that's like the part I feel really exciting as Saahil mentioned. Like every few weeks, you just new model that change the paradigm about this. And the key thing is about the hitting the quality bar for that certain scenario output. So I definitely think, so with Gemini 3, it really start hitting that bar, I see, which means that with enough context engineering plus the models, we can actually produce, what a good designer can produce traditionally. And probably that quality is already better than 80% of the design freelancer on Upwork that they will produce, which is interesting how that changed the dynamic. Which means if I am a founder who don't have designer, if I'm founder and building product, one option is that I don't use a designer, or I go to a design agency to generate something, which normally, if you hire a designer, you will know that they probably also don't have enough context about your product, and it has sometimes they have a lot of opinions and will push back your request. But if you have AI, you just like tell it whatever ridiculous request you will have, but from the customer you talk to, it's probably true. It will produce something. It will try its best to produce something, and then you just like within a minute, right? And then you give feedback, and it produce more. So that iteration and feedback loop are just much better than you can get from a traditional service. In the actual company setup, what I see is that the role start really blurring, because each individual can do so much more than before. If you have a growth team, why do you still have the traditional setup of 1 PM, 1 designer, 2 engineer? Well, you can have growth people like Renee can just have an idea, ship, push to production code, and if you go through those kind of traditional startup to scale up journey, you will notice that at an early stage the decision making quality and speed is almost always better because one person just hold all the context and they can just make the right decision. But as you grow in the traditional way, you're just adding, break one row into multiple, and then you start creating silos of communication, and it just generally leads to slower decision making and sometimes worse decision quality. So yeah, I think that's kind of something really interesting. Since the role is really blurring, it's like you can, at least when I was at Relevance AI, we start experimenting. For the growth team, we just have put one designer on the growth team. She's responsible to like look at all the user feedback and figure out idea and just ship PRs. And we do have one engineer to review that, but that setup wasn't possible before. And I think I kind of left after that, so I don't know whether it actually work out. But it's very exciting, right? With those type of setup. So my gut feeling is that potentially, actually pretty keen to hear yourselves, like with this setup, probably we don't need very big team. Instead, you maybe have more team, more initiatives, but just one or two person start shipping a lot of stuff and holding all the context and autonomy.
Yeah, I was going to ask, what do you see as the future of this like product team that's trying to like ship a feature? What does that look like in the future? Is it a designer and an engineer? And like, do the PM and front end developer roles kind of get made redundant? Is that like where we're moving towards?
Let's take a designer as an example. Traditionally, designer team has a huge backlog. Some of them just like low-level basic things. We have product feature, we need to add a growth banner here, or we need to add button here. All those requests still need designer traditionally. But those things, whether it's still needed to go to designer, can PM or engineer, they just connect to a system. They already know their design system, your product context, just spin up something that is good enough. And to be honest, I also feel like AI with right context might produce better outcome from designer than traditional designer for those low-level things as well. So that's kind of like potentially one way. Is more like look at each role, what their current backlog, what are the parts that can potentially handled by another role with AI help, and so that role just focus on more like difficult, high quality problems.
Move up the value chain, like that's, and so like I feel like so much of what all of our AI tools are going to like do is like forcing us up the value chain, and you can like do more. Do you think it like not only so it like saves time for designers? What's the like aha moment?
Yeah, good question. So Google has this. I think they introduced this concept of generative UI. What that means is, currently everything still goes through design work. But if you have one agent that's so great at come up with design on spot within the context, and hopefully very fast, do you need to go through a design process? So the concept is like, what if we have this chat interface when you currently when you chat to ChatGPT, ask what's the weather, it will just give you a bunch of text, but you can like have agent to generate UI dynamically. So that's a new concept they introduced. It's not heavily adopted at the moment yet because it's just slower, and it's like trade-off for user, right? Do you trade off for the longer waiting time to get a slightly better data visualization? In many cases, it's not, ROI is not there. But as a change, I think there could be scenario that the ROI is actually there. So if you can think about, I'm a user, I go to your website, it can, based on my information, dynamically craft the experience for me. That would be quite interesting.
Kind of gets away from like what everyone hates about AI, which is like AI slob, to like the ultimate form, which is AI personalization. Like your actual entire experience is the way you prompt, the way you like experience something. Could be kind of cool.
I'm really curious, like something that I really struggle with when building is like, I have an idea for a product that I want to build. Then I get extremely stuck in the product design part because I also have a particular vision in mind, but I'm not a product designer, and I can't think like a product designer. I don't know like where to even begin. So for, say, product-minded founders who, have this vision, how do you suggest them using these new product design AI tools? Where is the value? Is it the prompt engineering that you need to know, or is it knowing the right references? Like how would you suggest them get to their product vision by using a tool like yours?
Yeah, good question. I think a lot of people currently using the coding tool is like, go build me to do app. It's like, imagine that you have an engineer in front of you. As a PM, you never do that. Just go build me to that. You're given proper spec, and that's where you and engineer, human engineers, start aligning. So I feel like it's probably the same case for AI as well. So generally, the quality of AI is really dependent on input you give to it. So which means the more kind of the plan and context alignment you can do with AI is better. So normally, let's say I'm building landing page. Normally, the flow I personally use a lot recently is that I would go to the best model, let's say Gemini 3 Pro, to give a lot of product context to it, and then tell it this is all the product, this is the user. Help me think through what are the content structure on the website. Then obviously back and forth a few times, and until I got a version that I feel pretty good, then I will take like section by section to go to, actually I use Nano Banana as well. I will take this section. Let's say I have this hero section. I know I want to talk about this, and this, and then get Nano Banana attach with my brand assets and generate a really good UI mock. Because I found image generation model is actually more creative, like it's max creativity compared with coding agent. So I do that, and then we get a mock there, and then feed to a coding agent who are more maybe trained on top of the design and front end design to output it.
What about visual design? Like, something that you would pay an agency for, whether it's like branding, your colors, you want something that stands out. Whereas I find with AI tools, it's still very much, it's probably better with Gemini now, but you get your classic purple buttons and the typical AI generated stuff. So any tips on, standout visual design using tools like this?
Yeah, I think actually with Gemini 3, it changed a lot. It was, I would say 1 month ago, no matter how much you prompt it still go back to the old one. But with new model, what do we sell? It became really creative. And the part you really want to do is you want to almost like point their creativity towards a direction you want, right? And that's where you start bringing the context of your product, your user, your brand style, to making sure to produce something really good.
I need to play around with Gemini 3 more.
For past 3 weeks. So.
Nice.
I want to hard pivot a little bit to the idea of kind of build versus buy. One of the things I've observed is that when you, in all the companies I'm working with today, there's a legitimate answer, a legitimate question of whether they should really bother buying software tools anymore, or whether they can just build it themselves. Because a lot of the kind of low-level software tools that you would normally do, you would normally buy a software tool for $20 a month, $50 a month, even a few $100 a month. You can probably build it yourself pretty quickly now. How are you thinking about that internally? Like, where would you choose to build? Where would you choose to buy? And I guess like projecting 3 months, 6 months ahead, like we've just spent a bunch of time talking about how, this is kind of an advert for Gemini at the moment, but like we've talked a bunch about how Gemini 3 has unlocked new capabilities. Like that's good. But probably by the time this comes out, that will be an old model and there'll be kind of 2 or 3 models ahead. So I guess how are you thinking forward on that as well?
Yeah, I spend most of my time daily thinking about this. Just a personal fascination. I think more and more low value, low lift things will have to be built yourself, because oftentimes like you get a product that fits like 90% of what you want, but there's always that 10% that you're like, oh, I wish it did this and I wish it did that. And then you push the CS team and you hope it ends up on the product roadmap, and then it never really ends up there. In today's world, the argument genuinely becomes that when you total up the cost of software, is it easier to just hire one person to do that? And how much of a percent of it time would it take? Like we have softwares for lead routing, we have softwares for this and that, and specific, very niche softwares that do middleware between our different tools. And can we just build that today? We've talked about how far coding models have come, and maintaining those coding models has become. And so is that a potential? I very much think so. Now, the other side of the argument is you always have this option of building internally, but who's going to maintain it long term? And that obviously becomes a big one. And then do you want to shift focus away from what is your core product and your core USP? And it will still take resources, and you have to start shifting the focus of the business away from what you deliver to customers.
It almost feels like there's this software budget, and that software budget is just going to get shifted into like an internal ops team, where there are just a few people internally, this kind of center of excellence, the way you were describing it, and it's their job to kind of build and maintain these tools that you would have typically spent like 20 grand a year on.
Yeah, I think for me, it's definitely build internal tooling and workflows like you have at Tracksuit. We haven't really started doing too much of that just because we're a tiny team. And I do think like we'll have an internal ops team at some point where they will be responsible for internal tooling. Whereas I can't see us building, say, a headless CMS for our website and blog, because that is a lot to build. And so I think it depends on the scope of the tool. But when it's extra personalized, I think it makes a lot more sense to build internally, because you ultimately know and can be in control of what that workflow is. So that's kind of how I would think about it for Chronicle.
Actually, I care, like in the Tracksuit, it looks like you guys did a lot of experimentation. Is it set up where you guys just have one person, like AI ops, who is responsible for maintaining the software? Or
Yeah, so right now, it's actually really curious, and we're going through looking at how we do this next year. At the moment, our go-to-market ops team is maybe 5 people, and whoever builds maintains. So if I build an agent today, I maintain that agent. But we are thinking long-term about how do you even within that model start to define out roles, right? Like there are roles that are better at prototyping and shipping version 1 of an agent or of an internal tool that needs to maintain something. And there are other people that can then take that tool and make sure it's not only driven end to end, but get real value. Like again, it goes back to personality types, but get real value from seeing something completely being finished and executed. And how do we develop those people as well? So you might be able to ship a large degree of agents really niche across the business, and then have other teams maintaining and driving that long term. And that's a shift that we're actually like currently working through.
That's a big team, 5 people.
Yeah, 5 people. But our go-to-market team it serves the whole go-to-market team. So that might be, I think, nearly 90 people across sales, marketing, customer partnerships, like all across the board. And so when you actually like work that out in terms of ratio, it's very small by the type of impact you can drive. And I think as orgs start to go forward over the next like few years, and as you guys are like prime examples of, is you don't want to scale through headcount, you want to scale through efficiency. Right? Like no one's out here wanting to just stack headcount for every problem. It's about how do you bring efficiency into the business? How do you move? I think Jackie had sent me this stat. It's like sellers spend 30% of their time actually talking to like clients. Why should that not be 60, 70%? And then your like productivity, like your ARR per rep, everything will be, and already I think are core measures of success for any business.
This is something I've been thinking about a bit, because it's hard as a board member sometimes to get a sense of how much these metrics should be changing. How are you thinking internally in terms of like sales quota is a really good example of one where you think, well, with tools today, like maybe you typically would have asked a sales rep to deliver $1 million a year. And like, should that now be 1.5 or 2? Or, you don't want to move the goalposts on people, but also you should, with this extra leverage and, salesperson's time with customer going from 30% to 70%, should that change their outcomes as well? I mean, how are you thinking about setting the bar on performance internally as well these days?
It's hard to directly change the end metrics, because when I was working at Random AI, so we were launching an AI sales agent, and when we sell to the customer, obviously their expectation is like, okay, can you just deliver more, deals? But that's hard because there are so many like points to like you can deliver something that promise automating things, but it's hard to deliver something that promise delivering the final output. But I found what worked kind of well is like, it's kind of when you have probably, it's like when you do growth experimentation, you also don't probably just optimize for the user churn. You kind of start defining the leading indicators for the product. So I guess potentially it's very similar things. For each role, you start defining those leading indicators. Like for sales agent, what we found is that like the number of activities that it can deliver, and we just optimize for that. And with hypothesis that more activity you do, you should lead to more final, hopefully, revenue. But it's hard to just measure, put a direct, harder, revenue goal. But maybe you saw some portfolio company did it. I don't know.
Well, I'll say I partially agree, but I'll give you a contrary opinion as well, right? Which is, yes, I think a massive part of like a sales agent is how do you make it more efficient, do the admin, blah, 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 right? But that's also partially the boring stuff. I think like on the flip side is how do you actually drive more revenue? And I don't know if this is a direct leader to quota yet, because that has overall implications from like marketing and a bunch of other sources, but how do you actually use like a sales AI agent to deliver more quota? It's actually how do you lift metrics throughout the business? So one example that we've specifically done is looked at how can we deliver custom assets to prospects before they've ever met with us, right? So like an example for us, we know our product actually is like an aha moment. When people get a demo, they're like, oh my God, this is amazing. We need this in our company. And so it was all about how do you bring that forward to a prospect? And with AI now, we're able to deliver customized, like personalized dashboard to each prospect from like an SDR, which would have never been able to be done before through like a dummy environment with dummy data. But today you're able to like bring that to a customer. And so that's where like you can start to get incremental and saying, no, we are going to drive greater incremental pipeline and greater incremental revenue, specifically driven from an unlock through an AI ops team that we weren't able to do before.
Jason, you're and I guess to you to a degree, Renee, as well. Like you guys are at the very beginning, really, of the journeys. I mean, like Chronicle's only a few years old. You're really just getting started in the last few months. Like, how will you build the team differently today versus how you would have, I guess, at the other startups you worked at in the past? And what, I guess, if you forecast 12 months forward, like, what do you see the composition of the team being?
Yeah. So maybe I share like so two startups I worked before, Civic Culture and also Relevance AI, and I all joined them like during the growth stage. So the traditional way obviously just grow rapidly with number of people, but yeah, we talk about all the problems that you can also have come with those headcount increase. The way I'm thinking about building the team is that we have just ideally very small amount of people, hopefully 10 people team, and you care more about like the revenue per head. That's kind of the metrics I think will be more interesting, and that come down to each individual is like really strong, AI native, which means they like need to be strong, and also AI native, which means they automate a lot of work. They should work in that different from traditional ways, yeah. So that's kind of like the way we currently think about the team structure. And for me, as a little startup, I feel like we just want mostly engineer to deliver the product, and just to if it depends. I think it really depends on whether B2B or bottom up growth. So if the bottom up growth, which is where I am, I just want to hire good engineers, and that's it. But if it's B2B, obviously you need to do the like sales side. That would be that part. I don't know whether you can just change the paradigm there totally. But yeah, for PLG side, I can see a lot of change.
Yeah, that makes sense. And you're already seeing it with so many companies like Curse is at $1 billion in revenue. I don't know, it's got tens of employees, I think. So yeah, it's pretty spectacular.
Yeah.
But what about you, Renee?
For me, I've been thinking about like what does Chronicle's growth org look like moving forward? Like how will it change over the next few years? And I look after a lot of our content, like product marketing, SEO, socials. And I think that will get to a point where it'll be automated to an extent, where there will be workflows where posts get scheduled by itself, and we just like generate an asset that's on brand. And I see myself automating that, and then moving into more of the B2B side and doing more sales and spending actual time with prospects and customers. And so I kind of see my role shifting that way over the next year. And when it comes to who will I actually hire and who will I look for, I would go for more specialists. Say, for example, performance marketing is something that I have no idea how to do, and I would hire specifically for those, because you can now be such a generalist with creating all these workflows that you can create your own little associates essentially in the workflow. So I would go more specialist and then move on to other parts of go-to-market and tackle them kind of one piece at a time rather than, and I don't see the team getting bigger than a couple of people over the next year or two actually. So I don't think that the volume of people will grow that much, at least in the growth side of things for Chronicle.
Just to round it out, I mean, if you were giving advice to anyone today who may be a couple of years or months behind you in this journey, you know, where would you get started? I mean, like down to, you know, tomorrow, log on to this, read this particular document online. Like, how would you get started tomorrow? Maybe I'll start with you, Saahil.
Number one, I'd go watch Jason's YouTube channel. It's a plug, but I actually love the content. But no, I'd say pick a personal problem and start building it. In terms of, you can go to ChatGPT today, take a long walk, turn it on voice mode, tell it the problem you want to solve. It'll give you the instructions and the tools and everything. And you might flop 3 times doing it. I know I did whenever I was building anything. But go do that, and you'll break a lot of things along the way, but you'll find the limitations of what is and isn't possible. And in doing that itself, you'll learn a tremendous amount.
What about you, Renee?
Same thing, like find something that would excite you to solve. For me, my first app was a wine AI, where I would go to a wine bar and I wouldn't know what the wine menu said, like all these different wines, and I would take a picture and it would tell me based on my palate what you should order. And it was just fun for me. So pick something small, just ship it, like go to ChatGPT, or you can use Cursor these days and tell it, this is what I want to build, and it'll give you every single step that you need. So just follow what they say and like try to get it to a shipped point. And then my second thing would be, once you have a sense of building, I learn how to market yourself or market the product, and get comfortable with posting on LinkedIn or Twitter or whatever your channel of choice is, but start to put yourself out there and get over the hump of coming off as cringe. That's something I had to get over, and I think it will open a lot more doors and opportunities. You'll meet new people, and I think it comes hand in hand, like building and also creating content and marketing.
Yeah. I just thought about a thing, like, so yesterday I was interviewed one of the other engineer, and my founding engineer asked him a question in the end. Like, as an engineer, coding agent is getting so good. What's the value you are adding as a human? And I thought that was brutal, man. And but that's a good question. Like, assuming the future, based on what we talk about, is that the people who will be really good is like people who your uniqueness come from certain aspect. Right? You might be using AI tools, but you just have better understanding of customer. You just have better on the taste. There's something unique about yourself, so you should like just build things based on your unique kind of quality. But also when I think about all the like talents on the market, you want to making sure that business don't need to make a hard choice. Do we hire someone really good, experienced, or someone is AI native? You want to be the person in the middle. So which comes down to like you just try a lot of AI tools, because it's so new that no one knows best practice to automate whatever role you're doing. But you just need to try those things so you get a lot of like good taste about what's gonna work, what's gonna hit the quality bar. So I would say do that, and fundamentally, if you work in product org, you should probably learn a bit more like fundamental technical about the like large language model, how agent works, and they also come down to just build your own personal product using Cursor, and they just learn a lot after just one project. That's probably.
If I had to ask for one recommendation from each of you, either a podcast or a blog, Substack, anything else, like, where would you go?
I mean, this channel called AI Jason, so people can go. I mean, like if they're like engineer, they're like a YouTube channel called AI Engineer, which they're really good. They always share like the latest kind of technical thing. And for like design, I personally follow this one person called Mental. I think he shared a lot of like good design tips into prompts. MENGTO, yeah. and I think product person, you have the Lenny. Yeah, Lenny, he's pretty good. He invited a lot of good people.
I was going to say Lenny. Also because if you do the, not a plug for Lenny, I don't get anything back, but if you do the yearly subscription, you get like access to pretty much every AI tool for free on the pro version for a year, which I think, again, goes back to the experimentation point of view. Subscribe, and then you also get access to actually go, like they push you to go and build, which I think is like actually the best way to go do it.
Nice.
This is specifically a tech recommendation.
No, it could be anything.
I've actually actively been trying not to consume startup/AI content because I find it stresses me out, like just being like working in it and all of that. So I've been actually trying to like go completely the opposite direction. I have a book recommendation. I'm reading a book called A Swim in the Pond. It's a book which analyzes a number of Russian short stories like Tolstoy and Chekhov, and it's an English professor who breaks down those essays, and it kind of talks through the techniques in that book. And it's just been really interesting kind of work that I would never read before because I would find so boring, but actually understanding the prose and the literature, that's been actually really refreshing. So I sit down every morning with my coffee and do a bit of that before I jump into work and tech. So that would be mine.
That sounds so wholesome. Love that. Well, thank you all for your time. Really appreciate it.